Welcome into the Pillow Talk stream, the second of two streams that we do each day here. We do the first one is called High Noon. That comes on at, well, guess what time? Guess what time High Noon comes on? That's noon, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, the best time. None of that East Coast, West Coast Mountain Time nonsense. That's High Noon. High Noon is topics. It's more like a traditional talk show without all the awful stuff that happens in current radio talk. No divisiveness. We don't do politics. We do basically everything else that there is to talk about. Oh, and I guess we do get divisive. I mean, today, I argued with something today. I don't remember what it was. I don't know, but still, it's fun. It's not anything that we're going to hate each other over. So that comes to you every Monday through Friday, noon till 2:30, whatever. Sometimes it's going to end at 2. Sometimes it's going to end at 2:30. This one here, we do this at 9 o'clock. This is the second stream. We call this Pugs and Parker proudly present Pillow Talk on the Radio Misfits podcast platform. This is more conversational. Me and James Parker, he'll be along shortly. We, sometimes we get a little silly, I suppose. Sometimes, maybe we'll get into one issue, maybe two issues tops. That's pretty much, it. Whereas the noon show is trending topic, hot take. Next, trending topic, hot take. So join us for any of those if you can. Hey, Byron, how are you? What's new? Oh, man. I think Parker's here, but what is that? I don't know what that is. He has chimed in, but he's just giving us like some kind of, there he is. Ladies and gentlemen, coming to your screen any minute. Now, turn your camera on. James Parker. There he is.
Good morrow, sir. Yes. Can I help you? Oh, good crowd today, huh?
There you go. All right. James, I'm having a problem. You're not a beardsman. You're not a beardsman, are you? Hi, Jeff.
What does that even mean, a beardsman?
Like you have facial hair, but you've never like grown out the full beard, right? You've never gone full Mumford, right? You've never like done the whole hipster beard thing, have you?
No. My beard was like last week. It was about as big as it's ever been in my entire life.
Really?
Well, I was such a late bloomer that I couldn't really grow a beard until I was like 25.
Oh, I could grow a beard at 15.
You're so lucky, man. That must have scored so good with the chicks.
Oh, not really.
No?
But I was always sent in with the fake ID.
Okay. Yeah.
I was always the one who went in, who tried. You got a beard? You go try it. Me and another dude, Kevin Crowley. Me and Kevin Crowley were the only guys in high school who had full-on beards. We used to look at each other. We passed each other in the hallway and go, yeah.
What's up, grown-ass man? Yeah.
You buy beer for your guys too? He's like, I sure do. Yeah, me too. I got it. I'm the one. I'm having a beard crisis. James, let me show you something. So it's trimmed down very, very short, right? I mean, it can get really bushy if I wanted to, but I like a little bit high and tight. I like a little bit short. Here's the problem that I'm going through now. And it's been coming for a couple of years. James, I used to have the most beautiful auburn brown with little highlights of red in my beard. It was beautiful. Mm-hmm. It was like, I don't know. Yeah, it was like a right off the Lucky Charms box, I mean, it looked really good. I was really happy with the coloring. Then the gray started to come in. And the gray was like, oh God, here we go. Right? Okay, now I'm going to get gray. This is going to suck. But I dealt with it and it was fine because it was like salt and pepper. But now I've got this like really terrible thing that's happening where like it's staying auburn through here and then like right here and then right here, right there. But everywhere else it's white. So, I mean, it just looks like, you know what it looks like? I could grow, like you can really see what I would look like if I just went with like one of those big handlebars. See, because of the color difference,
That's the exact same pattern I have going on. See, and my beard was flaming red, and when I could finally grow a beard, I never did because it looked so ridiculous. Because my hair was a little bit lighter than this,
Mhm.
like 10, 15, 20 years ago. And my beard though was flaming red. And so it looked like I either dyed my hair or I dyed my beard, but
It didn't
and I
matter.
didn't. I didn't. I have mixed genetics, I'm a mix.
What's how's the pube situation? How you doing down there? You got any
Fire
gray down
crotch.
there? Fire
Fire
crotch.
crotch. Yeah.
Whole I know.
That's so weird. Do you have
Last
that
to go.
too?
It's the last to go. It's fine. Yeah, it's got the fire crotch of a 17-year-old. It's
It's weird though. The only good thing about the fire crotch is it's the only option you have for the pubes. You either have, black, dark brown or black pubes or fire crotch. There's not really a third option.
I actually I might be overstating. I can't. I mean, it's not like I got Joy Behar in a headlock down there. I mean, it's not a fire crotch fire. It's brown. It's like a brownish. It's like the beautiful beard used to be. It's brown with just nice some highlights of red. But you're full on you're full on Kidman down there.
Well, it's dulled in my older years, but it's still more red than anything else.
Is that why you have an attraction to red haired girls? Is it sort of like compatibility thing?
I think there's a couple reasons I have an attraction to redhead girls. For one thing, I was really close to my grandmother growing up, and
Here we go.
and she was a pale redhead. She looked like she just jumped off a Lucky Charms box.
Yes,
She was like 5'2", huh?
that shouldn't explain your sexual attraction to redheads, but please continue.
Well, no, but of all the members in my family, like I am most like her than anyone else. I'm more like her than I am my mother or father. And talking about personality wise, definitely not looks, because she's more pale than I am, and her hair's flaming red. And then like until she got cancer and started getting chemo, she never even had gray hair on her head. She was a blessed one. And so I don't know. I just think that type of person is like really cool. And since she died when I was like 21, I feel like it's something I've been seeking out in adulthood is, just a parallel experience to that. Because when I was growing up, she was the perfect woman.
Weird. I
Huh?
asked you why you were sexually attracted to redheads, and you're going on about your grandma. That's just weird.
That's the best explanation I have.
It's not the best. It's an explanation, but it ain't the best one.
Hey, I've put a lot of thought into this. My biological evolutionary theory is that since I am a mutt, then I am attracted to the extremes of the phenotype pool. So I'm really attracted to super duper pale redheads, like their skin's almost clear, right? And I'm also attracted to not black chicks, but like really, really, really dark black chicks. I think that looks amazing. So I think since I'm kind of a mix in the middle to get the proper blend, for my offspring to be as robust as possible, I would necessarily go for the extremes. And there's the people on the extremes, like people who are blonde hair, blue eyed, white. They have a tendency to be attracted to sort of the olive skin, dark hair, tall, dark, and handsome type guy,
Yeah.
because that's what they are not. And I think most people understand that mixing your genes comes up with a stronger offspring, because it's the opposite of sort of inbreeding. You don't just really want to stay within the clan over and over and over, because you're going to end up with like a Habsburg jar or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. You know what you get when you just have all the same people having sex and reproducing? You get this. This is me. I am 100% pure. I need to mix this up. That's why I keep saying I want my son. My son's attracted to black girls. I think that's wonderful. I think that we need to really jazz up the genetics in this family. I think that we need a shot of something exotic.
There's a biological explanation for that, and you see it in dogs, and that's not to be like racist or anything,
Mutts,
but
best animal.
yeah, mutts don't ever have to go to the vet.
No.
They don't have like breathing issues and like if you get a pugs or something. No offense to you, but
No, hey, they're the worst.
yeah. So you find that with like poodles and Dalmatians, and the extreme breeds, the extreme far ends of the phenotype pool have issues. But when you mix them up, like if a poodle breeds with a poodle, they're still likely to have the same issues, if not exacerbated issues. But the mutts are the strongest of the breeds. And so I also think it works in reverse. If you're a Semitic person, and I don't mean Irish, I mean Jewish, I mean mixed, like Middle Eastern mixed, You can tell though you see a lot of those guys have an unusual attraction to the extreme phenotypes, the blonde hair, blue eyes, or black,
Chinese
or
guys
or, or Asians. You
Chinese
know,
guys love blonde, tall American girls. Like just
yes,
complete opposite
yes,
of what they're used to.
yeah, and you see that repeat itself from continent to continent.
Yeah. Um, well, 2 things, to comment on what you just said there. My mom had red hair, and I love my mom, don't get me wrong, she's my, well, I got 1 and 1A, favorite people in the world. Mom and son, 1 and 1A. They're neck and neck, and it depends on the day, really. Um, but because my mom's a redhead, and I think this makes sense, because my mom is a redhead and because I see a maternal thing in redheads, I've never been attracted to redheads.
Yeah,
Not romantically. But I mean, it's not I don't dislike red. My mom is a redhead. I love my mom. Like I said, 1 and 1A, her and my kid. But I think that that's it. I think that the whole reason that I'm like I've had friends who, see a redheaded girl and they're like, "Oh, she's so hot." And I'm like, hot? I don't
oh,
equate
to me
red
they're the
hair with
best.
hot.
They're
Yeah.
the best. They're the best. And not only like am I attracted to black chicks? Like I mentioned, darker the better. I like the natural hair on a black girl. The puff ball.
Oh, really? Is
That is
that what you
so.
like?
That's adorable. That's
All right.
adorable.
All right.
Yeah, and it was great that I went to such a diverse high school. So I was a happy fella.
I did not go to a diverse high school. I went to a high school. We had, the most exotic people that we had in my high school were Asian kids, and they were all Filipino. That was it. All Filipino. It was just,
Is that really Asian?
no,
Nah.
no, because they all had Hispanic last names.
Right, and they kind of look like Polynesian more than Japanese.
We had one black kid in my high school. Actually, senior year, I think we got a second one. I think it was a girl. I think we had two. We had yeah, everybody's white. I went to an all white high school. Everybody's white. Hey, question about the dog thing though. This is an observation that I've had. You talked about how the best dogs, and I agree. I think that the best dogs are mutts. You mix them up,
Well,
whatever.
I mean, define best. I mean that as most healthy and
Friendliest,
and,
the
and
coolest. No, I mean
longest lifespan. Yeah,
easiest to train, the best family dogs. They're just the coolest dogs. The coolest
Jefferson.
dogs
I
are
didn't. I didn't
mutts.
go to Lee or John Tyler. I went to Chapel Hill.
Chapel Hill.
Yeah, I'm not actually from Tyler. I'm from a small town outside of Tyler that you haven't even heard of. And the reason you hadn't heard of Chapel Hill is because there's 3 different Chapel Hills in Texas. There's the big one that's kind of by Houston. There's another one by Mount Pleasant, like where Louis Gomert's from. I think you love him, don't you, Pugs? And then there's the Chapel Hill where I went to, where it's not even really a town. So they had to call it New Chapel Hill, even though no one calls it New Chapel Hill. But on paper, it's New Chapel Hill. It's a
Um,
thing.
so the point about the dogs that I was making, mutts being the best. Have you noticed this? Everybody, I encourage people. You want to get a dog, you go to the pound. Go to the pound, save a dog's life. You're going to get a great dog. You can get a mutt. They're not going to tell you what it is. It's not going to be a. What are you pointing at?
Byron, we get it, James. You're not racist. You also have a black friend.
Oh. um,
I love blacks. Yeah.
So have you noticed that like everybody who drags a dog home from the pound, everybody who drags a dog home from the pound, you're like, what is it? And they go, I don't know. But I think it's got some pit bull in it. Every dog, every stray, every pound, every mutt dog alive these days, all they're sure about is that it's got some pit bull in it. Now, is that just because they think there's some cachet with being able to say you have a pit bull, or are there pit bulls out there just raping every dog on the street? I mean, what is that?
I lean more toward the rape theory, but I also lean toward the origin of the dogs that end up in the pound are dogs that do not come from families that are ready to accept it. They are probably sloppy or irresponsible with their dog handling. So that probably overlaps with the part of society that's just sloppy with the rest of their life. And so they don't live on the best part of town. And
Getting
the
back to
pit,
Byron, what part of society do you think that is, James? What do you
like the north side of Tyler.
okay, yeah.
But no, look, the pit bull phenomenon, it's not a black thing. There's plenty of white people who love their pit
Oh
bulls.
yeah.
And Michael
I
Chato's a
love pit bulls. I love pit bulls. I was afraid of pit bulls until I lived with one,
it's
and
dumb as hell, man. Why do you like pit bulls? So I like
because
playing with grenades.
no,
Pins never falling out on me.
no, they're not. That's what you're wrong about. They're absolutely not. They are incredibly bright. They're incredibly loving. They're terriers. Now they can be turned mean, and when they're turned mean, they just happen to be walking muscles. But they are not evil dogs. They
They
are
are killing machines, and so
when they are trained to be killing machines, or
okay,
when
no,
they're
no, 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 no.
abused, or
Look,
when they are led down that path. They are absolutely wonderful dogs when they're in loving homes. Wonderful. Absolutely.
okay, all right. Do you want to have the pit bull talk or not?
Yeah, yeah, I've got a lot of experience with pit bull. I lived with a guy who bred
Mm,
pit bulls, and I
I
lived in a
know.
house that at one point had like 10 pit bulls, and they were all the sweetest, most loving, most non-aggressive dogs I've ever been around. I'm around a dog right now. It's an absolute mania. Well, I don't have to tell you.
Bit
Uh,
me twice. Yeah.
yes, yes, but I never in any of the pit bulls that I lived with were anything like that. I can show you pictures of my 4-year-old son be with his absolute best friend, a pit bull that was like twice his size, that would go everywhere with him. We would sit with him. He could ride him around. I mean, it was an amazing dog, just an amazing dog.
Oh no, look, I'm glad it worked out for you. I'm not saying all pit bulls are bad, but you're rolling the dice with any dog. And the problem is if you roll snake eyes with a pit bull, it's a killing machine. And so when you look at like the number of people that are killed in America every year by dogs, it's not a lot. It's like 26.
So
But
you
like
believe
20,
in nature, not nurture. You think that there are just some dogs who are just bad seeds and they're just going to be terrible. That's what you're saying.
it's both. It's both. Of course you can train a dog to be evil and violent. But like when we've done this story, when we talked about pit bull deaths, like the best example I have is when I was on satellite radio, because I'm not bragging, but we had like 300, 400,000 listeners at any given time. And so if we brought up the pit bull story, the call lines would be flooded, and half of them would be what you just said. Nicest dog I know.
Yeah.
I let my kid play with it and it pulls his ears, and he used to ride it around when he was 3 years old. Never did anything. And look, I'm glad for you. That's fantastic. Love it. The rest of them, the other half of the calls are, yeah, you know what? I used to be that guy who was like the most loving dog, and if you raise them right, and if something went bad, it's because people don't know what they're doing. And I've had like 10 pit bulls, and then one day this dog just for no reason went and he bit half of my freaking face off, or like he destroyed my wife's forearm, and we had to put him down. And we didn't do anything wrong. We know what we're doing. I've had people say I'm literally a certified dog trainer, and I've gone through 20 pit bulls without ever having any problem. And one day, a 6-year-old pit bull, after exhibiting no signs of violence or instability, just tore off and like bit my neighbor's kid and tore him up or something. And so look, you're probably going to be okay with a pit bull, but why risk it? Because look, if you get a poodle and it goes south, what's he going to do? Bite your Achilles heel? Oh, you got me
I don't
so
want a
good.
poodle. I don't want a poodle. I wanted. I
Well,
want.
I know, but I'm saying, I'm saying for like Boston Terrier, the likelihood of death or serious injury is still zero, even if they go absolutely insane. And so every year, the number one killer from the dog world is pit bulls, and it's by like a factor of 10. And then usually number two is like a Rottweiler or a German Shepherd, but those are only like single digit deaths every year, and the pit bull is like 20 deaths every year.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you can extrapolate anything to make an argument about the breed, and I think they're a much maligned breed. That has not been my experience. I lived first 35 years of my life thinking that pit bulls were these terrible animals, and then I lived with a whole house full of pit bulls, and I have never been around more loving, more wonderful breed of dog than the pit bulls that I lived with. I'm trying to
Oh no,
trying
and that's fantastic and good for you, and you're probably going to be okay. There's probably like a 99% chance you're going to be okay. But in that 1%,
probably.
yeah, no, you are. No, no, and I'm not doubting that. And I don't think you're necessarily an idiot for getting one, but I think you're taking an unnecessary risk that doesn't even exist, because the number of deaths from Chihuahua in the history of Chihuahuas is zero.
Well, okay.
But yeah,
Hold on. Go, no, go ahead. Keep talking.
I find this topic completely frustrating because of people like you, and that's no offense to you, but that's fine. That's been your experience. That's cool. But the record of history of who is getting hurt by dogs, the pit bulls are the worst. The pit bulls are deadly as hell. And why are you taking that risk? It's like, yeah, I walk through the minefield like every
I
day
think
for the
you're taking
last 30 years and I didn't step on anything.
I think you're taking that risk with any dog that is larger than a Chihuahua. I think you're taking. I don't think that it's fair to just be, pointing out the
I
pit
mean,
bull.
you can say that, but the number of people that are killed by Dalmatians every year is zero. The number of people that are killed by pugs every year is zero. Dachshunds, zero. Most breeds is zero. There's only a handful of dogs that are actual trained killing machines, and the pit bull is the apex predator of all of them.
All right. I mean,
No,
I
look at Jeff's comment. Pit bulls are the chimpanzees of dogs. They're smart and loving until they decide, for whatever reason, to rip your face off.
yeah, I don't agree with that. I
Well, you
think
don't have to agree with it or not. The record of history is clear. Pit bulls, even people who know what they're talking about in a loving family who have had other pit bulls and have done everything right, every once in a while things go south and you end up at the plastic surgeon, if not death.
I don't know. There we go. That's our boy. Look at that. That was my little 4, 5, 6 year old's best friend in the entire world. That dog right there. That dog never left his side. Loyal to a fault. Good with the mailman. Anybody could come into the house that we were at. We were running a radio studio out of the house. We had people coming and going all the time, and this dog was just like, "Hi, my name's Bach. What's up with you?" I mean, I push back on the whole pit bull thing. I think that there has been
Well, what you have is anecdotal evidence, but the record
no,
of
no, no, no,
history
no,
is
no, no, James.
brutal.
What I have is real life experience, not
That's what
any.
anecdotal evidence is. You're like, well, my experience with pit bulls has been good, so there must not be anything
You're,
wrong with them. That's
well,
terribly unscientific and illogical.
and yours is completely non-nuanced. Yours is completely based on raw data. Now, which I don't know whether or not you can use to prove any point you want, but this. I don't know. I would like to know how many more pit bulls there are than every other dog, because we've already talked about the fact that every single dog in the world seems to have some pit bull in it in the last.
So yeah, so you're
So,
worried more about the per capita pit bull murders. Is that what you're
well,
worried about?
I'm worried about every dog being called a pit bull that bites somebody because,
Well,
well,
I
it's got some pit bull in it. That's a pit bull. Let's put that in the pit bull column. Come
right,
on.
but look, I wouldn't get on an airplane that had a
Well, how
99%
do you feel
chance of
about
landing.
German shepherds? How do you feel about Doberman pinchers? How do you feel about
Similar
mastiffs?
issues. Similar issues.
You just don't like big dogs. You just
No,
don't
no,
like
it's
you're
not that I
being
don't like them. That I if I had one, it would be if I'm a single male, not with 4 kids in the house, and I'm risking myself, and I don't really give a rip about
Did you
myself.
know they're nanny dogs? That's what they were used as, nanny dogs originally, because they're so good with children. Petey from the Our Gang comedy was a throwback to the nanny dog era. The dog, when the parents were, busy, nobody had babysitters back in the 1890s, the nanny dog would hang out with the kid and protect the kid. That's what they were known as, nanny dogs. They're not bad with kids. That's a
Most of
modern.
them are not, and most of the time you're going to be okay. But it's an absolutely unnecessary risk, and for many people every year that regret their dog choice, it's overwhelmingly the pit bull owners.
All I can tell you is
You have options of
you're wrong.
dogs that are
Yes,
similarly good with kids that
yes.
aren't Jesus's perfect killing machine.
I don't think pit bulls are Jesus's perfect killing machine. I
Yeah, it
think
might be
that
sharks, but
I think that yes, I think that pit bulls they're just beautiful, and they're wonderful family dogs, and they've been much maligned because they're incredibly smart and super easily trainable, and when you abuse any animal they get mad, and it just so happens to be that when you abuse a pit bull and it gets mad, you're right. It can do a little bit more damage. But if you love your animal and if you treat your I push back on the whole notion that somehow pit bulls are more dangerous than other breeds of dogs. They're not.
that's silly. That's like
That's
saying
what
an
you say.
AR-15 is not more dangerous than a 6 shooter.
Well, isn't that? No, James, it isn't. They're more. they are more dangerous in the same context as any dog can be dangerous. If a dog is made to be a mean, aggressive animal, then yes, they can do more damage because they're bigger and they're stronger and they have muscle. But they are not any more inclined to be aggressive or dangerous than any of these other dogs that you're mentioning. And as a matter of fact, because they are so smart and they are so easily trainable, which is why they are so good at being guard dogs, they're less likely to be a complete psycho. I mean, look, all the
All
news
right.
magazines in the 80s and 90s made a lot of commercial dollars off of pretending that pit bulls were some kind of urban tiger, and that's just absolute bullshit. It's just
Okay, over a 10-year period, pit bulls accounted for 62% of the recorded dog deaths, and they are 70% of the dog attacks.
okay, but wouldn't that also be because one, they're probably one of the more popular breeds among people who are less inclined to be good and responsible dog owners? Isn't that fair to say?
That is fair to say, but the point is that some of them are owned by perfectly responsible dog owners, many of whom have had a string of pit bulls. That's their favorite breed that they've had
Yeah, see, I
for
don't know
years and
about
years
that.
and years.
We're gonna have to look at
Go
that.
ahead. It's
I
different for me because I used to be where you were, and I used to be like, yeah, well, you're just not raising them right. But I've gotten bombarded with calls doing radio shows on satellite radio where it was one after another for 3 straight freaking
Oh, yeah, the
hours.
anti-pit bull lobby is strong, man. I have no doubt. I have no doubt.
No, it's not the anti-pit bull
Of
lobby.
course
Almost
it
all.
is.
Look, here's how the story goes.
People have been brainwashed for decades to believe that these dogs are awful, and they just
No,
never
no, no,
believe
no.
it
That doesn't
because
make
their
any sense,
dogs
Pugs.
suck. Of course
Pugs,
it
if
does.
if you're in the if you're in the anti-pit bull lobby, you wouldn't get a pit bull to begin with. You wouldn't
Right.
get a string of pit bulls year after year. You wouldn't be training them.
So
I've had.
everybody who called in claiming to have a pit bull that went nuts was legitimate, and you just completely believe that they
I
really had.
don't. It doesn't matter if all of them are.
Somebody-
If some of them, most of them, half of them are. That's enough.
You know what? Let me tell you something. I'm not going to have this sort of pit bull racism on my show, and that's exactly what it is. It's breed racism. So,
Breedism.
like
I'm a breedist for sure.
you are. All right, let's do this. Why not? 1, 2, 3, 4, and hit it. Please welcome to the Comfort Nest Lounge, nestled high atop the 1%er compound in beautiful, sunny Highland Park, Texas. Not so sunny now. Gotta admit, it's kind of nighttime. He's a comedy legend known around the globe. He's done every cruise ship that's in the water. I don't know. I had nothing to say there. It is James Felipe Parker.
Felipe, huh? Thank you very much. That feels like a promotion.
I'm
Like
looking at my Twitter page, and a friend of mine, Felipe, just tweeted. So
Oh,
it was.
I thought maybe you're thinking I'm handsome like Ryan Felipe. According to the CIA, Iran is expanding its cyber warfare capabilities. In fact, they're now threatening to wipe Israel off Google Maps.
Look at that.
Oh, good start. All right. Did you see this one, Pugs? A man on a Southwest flight from Seattle to Phoenix was arrested for masturbating 4 times on the same flight. Cops arrested him when they landed, said he had the right to attorney, but he said, no, thanks. I'll get myself off.
Oh, I stepped on it.
Oh, that was perfect. That's beautiful timing.
I thought I stepped on it.
Everyone saw it coming anyway. In Houston, 40. I know.
Whee!
Yep. A 47-year-old female teacher was arrested for having sex with a 15-year-old male student. But because she's an English teacher, Pugs, her sentence will be diagrammed.
All right. I hit it, and then there was like a 3-second pause.
I had a bad feeling about that one anyway, Pugs. That's all right. That's all right. I understand.
And then they
all right.
and they hated it.
Well, also in the United States, around the world, really, video game addiction is a growing problem. And parents of problem gamers can feel hopeless, but experts say that once the teen agrees to get help, it's on like Donkey Kong.
Come on, folks. He's working hard for you.
The crowd's had a tough day, I guess. People make different food choices as they get older, which is a challenge for the White House chef. In fact, he's already tapped into the strategic pudding reserve. Because he's old. He's kind of old.
Word.
Yeah.
Pudding.
New research shows that poor sleep leads to more belly fat. The findings are based on a study of Pug's mom.
All right. I had to
Yeah.
think about it. I denied it last night.
She's not watching, is she?
Probably.
Damn it. I'm sorry, Pug's mom. April is look, there's a lot of things April is. Like my next three jokes are April jokes. But first off, April is Sexually Transmitted Disease Awareness Month. Hi, Pug's mom. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. That was just a coincidence. But there's a new antibiotic resistant strain of gonorrhea. It's like a super strain of gonorrhea going around the globe. Doctors say if ordinary gonorrhea is the clap, this strain is a standing ovation.
Oh,
There it is.
there it is.
There it is. See, standing ovation and you clap. See what we did there? We're so clever. April is also Alcohol Awareness Month. According to a new study, light drinking increases your risk of cancer. Luckily, I'm a heavy drinker, so I'm probably okay with that. And finally, April's National Cannabis Awareness Month. According to the new study, the sperm of men who smoke marijuana don't swim as well as others, but they can hold their breath a lot longer.
All right. So, James,
So, Pugs.
I wanted to ask you something. Hold on. Where is it? Where's the thing that I wanted to? Oh, okay. Let me ask you this question. Maybe you've got a reasonable answer for me on this one. I saw this study today. You know how I like to go through my university journals and read all the latest studies that are out.
Yeah, I
Uh,
do that. Academic journals, me too. Peer,
are you
I peer review it myself. Yeah.
are you a member of? Are you peer queer? I am too. I get involved in that, and I'm whenever they say peer review, I always like to stand up and say that I'm one of them. Um, James, did you know that most Americans, let's see here, what is the number? Make sure. 60. Okay, so actually, it's a couple of different numbers here, but
Hey there.
I'll give it to you. I'll break it down by cities. The majority of Americans cannot name all four of their grandparents.
Yeah.
Can you name all four of your grandparents?
Yes, but I'm kind of a psycho about my genealogy, and you are too, because I mean we've traced our families back to the old country.
I cannot name all four of my grandparents. I can
No, well, your dad died before you were born, right? And
and
so
honestly, I can only name truthfully, I should only be able to name 50% of my grandparents, the grandparents that raised me. I had two sisters. I had a grandma and a grandpa who I've never met, who wanted nothing to do with me after my dad died, and fuck them. So screw them away. But the only reason that I know my grandfather's name on that side is because it's my name, because I'm the third. My dad was the junior, and that's the only. I have no idea what his
I
wife.
didn't know you were a third until right now.
Yeah. I'm a third. And I have no idea what his wife's name was. I don't even really care. But when I read this thing, I'm like, how can most Americans not know all four of their grandparents? And I'm like, holy shit, I actually don't know all four of my grandparents' names. I mean, I know two of them I know everything about, but then
Mhm.
there's like the other ones I don't know. And I am very into my genealogy, but I have a hole in my genealogy. I know more about my maternal path than I do. I mean, I know about.
Well, you say you're 100% Irish. You would
Yeah,
have to know that they're 100% Irish in order to say that.
they are.
And
Yeah.
and both of your grandparents on the paternal side are 100% Irish.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I that's
So you
pretty
know
much,
that,
and I know what
but
their
you don't know
name
the
is.
broad's name.
I don't know her first name. I don't know. You know what? Here's the thing. I probably know it somewhere. Like at some point, my mom will hear this and she'll go, "You know her name was," and then she'll say it, and I'll go, "Oh yeah, that's
Mhm.
right. Okay, I did know that." But I mean, honestly, I truthfully do not know it right now. Nor do I really care. And when I talk all about the family crest and how we come from landowners and we were earls, we were the lords of St. Alban and all that. That's all maternal. As far as the paternal side, the Morans, which is what the ancestral Irish name is, I have no idea. I don't. I mean, there's so. First of all, the Moran side, which the name was changed when they moved here, it was adapted. It was like Americanized. That's not the original genetic name. The original name that I come from is Moran, which is why I go by Pugs Moran. My actual real last name is a variation of that, but it stems from Moran. Ireland is lousy with Morans. It's like there's no way to trace that down. That's like, that's like being a college basketball player in the 90s named Jackson. Everybody was named Jackson.
Right.
There was one year the University of Illinois had like four guys.
4 of them. Yeah.
So Moran is like just way too common. But the other family name Tobin or Taubin or St. Aubin is actually far less and easier to trace. Like you can find mentions of them going all the way back to the Kells, which is not an ancient, but like a medieval document of Irish history from the time. But the Morans, I have no idea. So why do you think that is? I guess is my question. Why do you think it is that most America here? Let me read it to you. Familiar with your family tree? Question mark. There's a good chance you're not. More than half of Americans don't know the names of all 4 of their grandparents. A recent survey among adults from the top 10 Nielsen market areas and 202 from Salt Lake City found that there is a massive knowledge gap when it comes to recent family history. Knowledge of past generations varied by city. 66% of Boston residents could name all of their grandparents.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Compared to only 26% of people in Philadelphia.
What?
Yeah, 26% of people in Philadelphia couldn't name all 4.
Why is that so interesting?
San Francisco residents weren't much better at 34%.
Philadelphia, hey, who's your grandfather? No idea. Give me a Philly cheesesteak, okay?
While people in Chicago and Dallas, and I thought that was interesting that the 2 cities that I care about most are the only other 2 cities they mentioned. While people in Chicago and Dallas were only slightly higher than that at 36%. So Boston, of the cities that were charted, 66% of people can name all 4. But in Philadelphia, San Francisco is 34, Philadelphia is 26, and Chicago and Dallas, only 36% of people can name all 4 of their grandparents.
All right. Well, you want to hear some thoughts? And I would like to throw out the caveat that I have no idea what I'm talking about. So I'm just talking straight out of my ass.
Unlike the pit
now. No, out of the pit bull thing, I've had to research that over and over and over because you know how many times that's come up in 20 years of doing talk radio?
Formulate your thoughts. Let me just address Al in the chat room.
Okay.
Cheech is a Marin, not a Moran. Cheech from Cheech and Chong is Cheech Marin, which is also a variation of Moran. And the name Moran, actually, if you want to trace it all the way back through Irish history, began as Moreno, which was a Spanish name. So it was like when the Spanish Armada came and just kind of raped all the women, that's when they introduced the Moreno, the Black Irish. You've heard the term Black Irish. Those are Irish people with dark hair and dark skin. And those are the Spaniards who were, raped by the
or the Basque. Yeah.
Yeah, but typically the Moreno, we're talking about Moran. Moran comes from
not to go down the rabbit trail, but do you consider Basque Celtic? Basque, because that's a theory that I've always found interesting because that would mean we're related to them.
I do not consider the Irish people to be necessarily Celtic.
Really?
The Celts would have had, Celtic in culture, yes. But the Irish people, that was an island that wasn't the Druids. It was Druids. And the Druids were something else. They were like some other kind of thing. But it was when people started to take to the high seas that they populated Ireland. So that's when the Celtic people migrated, because the Celtic people were a migrating people. But the Celts come from more inland Europe originally than they do like Scotland and Ireland. So, Yeah,
I hear you. All right. So now can I throw out just my entirely baseless theories?
Why don't people know grandmas or grandpas?
Okay. So first off, we have a big chunk of Americans who don't even know who their damn dad is. So
True.
out of
Yeah.
wedlock births.
Mm.
That's even different than if your parents got divorced when you were 13. Like you didn't ever live with the dude, so you deep conversations are a lot less likely to happen and lot less likely to be repeated, so it sticks in your memory.
Do you know that that's not most people assume that that's a recent phenomenon, but that is not a recent phenomena,
Out of
that
wedlock births.
the people that don't know their fathers because their fathers went around, that goes all the way back. I mean, in revolutionary times, I mean, men have always been wanderers, and especially you go back into like the 1920s and the 1930s during the depressions, fathers left the home all the time. That's where you started to see, that's where the word stepfather was coined. The word that came out of the depression, when other men would step in to sort of start banging the woman who got abandoned.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the popularization of the term step came in, because they were the ones that were waiting on the doorstep when there was no other man there.
Yeah, well, that's what I think may contribute to it. I think another thing that may contribute to it is we never call our grandparents by their name. I never called either one of my grandmothers by their name. I never called either
That's good.
one of my grandfathers. Sometimes I would call him Joe, and he was the
Really,
Hispanic one. Isn't that funny?
never in my life did I call the two grandparents that raised me, as much as, not as much as my mom, but because there was an absence of a father, I spent a lot of time with my maternal grandparents. Would
Mhm.
never in a million years have called them by their first name. Never.
Well, it was fun for me because his name's Joseph and Joseph Gallahan. Um, but you could say, "Hey Joe," like the song "Hey Joe."
My
So
grandpa's name was Joe too. I would have never called him that.
I always thought that was cute, and plus, it was man. I loved that dude because he's 5'3" or was 5'3", and I'm 6'3", and so we would go places, and we did not look related because he's dark hair, dark skin. He's the Hispanic one.
Mhm.
And I look like me, you know.
Not Hispanic.
No, I don't look. I mean, I have dark hair and super duper dark eyes, and if I don't have a beard growing out, I look like I just have almost black hair.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I can kind of fudge it if I get a tan, but not really. So, yeah, we just don't look that related, except for kind of our facial features. If you can get past that, I have a different shaped head even than he does. Um,
You've got a bit of a pit bull head. Not to go
I
back to
do.
a
No,
earlier
no, with the
subject.
jaw, I
You
totally
do,
see
yeah.
that.
You've got kind of a pit bull head.
Agreed, agreed. Uh, so no, and I never called either one of like my grandmother. I didn't even call the one that hung out with the most, the redhead that I have a thing for.
When you were hot for.
Yeah. I always called her Boo. That was her nickname, and she was just Boo.
Mm.
So I
That does
think
make
that's
sense though. That the reason that a lot of people, just because someone can't name, the driver's license name of their grandparents, doesn't necessarily mean that they haven't had any sort of, because you'd extrapolate from that piece of information that you had no relationship with your grandparents. But yeah, I'm sure I this is interesting. My I actually I know for a fact. I actually, now I'm thinking about it. Like, does my son, if I put my son on the spot, would he know what my mom's name is? Because he just calls her grandma, or he calls her Grandma Chicago. He refers to her as Grandma Chicago because he's got a grandma in St. Louis and a grandma in Chicago, but he has never called her Marianne, which is her name. I wonder if I think he does know, because I think that he said something a couple of months ago. He jokingly said, "Oh, that Marianne," like talking about grandma, like he was being funny. So I think he does know. But I wonder if I
that's
put him on the spot, if he
what a
would know.
cute grandma name that is.
Marianne.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never really thought about it. I think it's a cute mom name for me, but okay, sure.
Okay, so here's another little theory. Again, talking straight out of the side of my neck here. I have no idea what I'm talking about. But my another theory could be that your grandparents just don't last that long. I'm out of grandparents, and I've been out of grandparents since before I was. I think my last grandparent died when I was 40 or 39, and so there's reasonable to believe that for a big chunk of people, they were out of grandparents long before that, before they were even 30. because my grandparents had kids young, and then my parents had kids young. So I'm not that much younger than my grandparents, but they just die on you before you get to know them that well. So
I
even if you're born in wedlock, and even if you had like extensive conversations with them through young adulthood, there's a chance that it just didn't stick what their real name was.
I lost 50% of my grandparents when my father was killed, and so I never had any relationship with them.
Okay.
I lost my other grandparents before 40. The
Yep.
other 2 I lost before 40. I lo
See,
mid
like, look what Byron's saying. My last one died at 19.
Aw.
Yeah, I know a lot of those stories.
Yeah, I do too,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah, but I knew my like I said, I knew my grandparents very well. Like my grandma and grandpa. I only had when I say grandma and grandpa, everyone knows I'm only talking about 2 people because the other 2 can go piss off. The other 2
That's
were
God,
never
that's so
around.
weird. Like, wouldn't who cares? It's your grandson. You don't give a crap to know
Yeah,
the dude?
they were Irish. They had a lot of kids. They had a lot of grandkids, kids coming and going. And also, I was the son of the oldest son, the heir apparent, if you will. And I think there was some concern about me come sniffing around looking for some family inheritance, because once my dad died, the other brothers were probably like, okay, we just moved up in the pecking order. Now we're in line for the inheritance.
Yeah, screw that
Yeah.
other guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's horrible,
Oh, look
dude.
at that. Very good. He spelt it wrong, but I just asked my kid if he knew his grandma's name, and he knew it, Marianne.
Marianne.
Look at that. There he goes.
Well done.
Good for him. Okay. All right. Well, that was fun. Do you have anything? I got a couple other things.
What are your theories on that?
I don't know. My theories are. I mean, I'd thought about it because I was going to do this on the noon show because this study was trending, but I thought, nah, you know what? I'll save it. I'd rather have someone to talk to about it.
Mhm. Because you could also add into that back in the day um, when you got older, there was no like social security or nursing homes. Your kids lived with you, and then when you got older, they had kids, and y'all were all just living in the same house on the tobacco farm or whatever, and so
Yeah.
like you lived with your grandparents. But when I got to adulthood, I never lived in the same city as any of my grandparents. I lived in Dallas, no grandparents there. I lived in Oklahoma, no grandparents there. Spent a lot of time in New York City, no grandparents there. New Orleans, no grandparents there. Yeah, my grandparents were like in Austin and Tyler, but she died young, El Paso and Kentucky. My grandparents were spread.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. No idea when my other grandparents died. I don't care. I don't care because I remember when the other ones did. The other ones were big deals. Big deals. Losing grandparents, man. If you got good grandparents, there's nothing better. There's nothing better than having good grandparents.
Yeah, my
Was
grandmother
it-
was amazing.
That was
Big
my
fan.
yeah. My grandma was my grandma. I'm not. Okay. Don't take this the wrong way. My grandma was trouble, man. Like she was awesome. I loved her. Don't get me wrong. She's like I had so much fun with my grandma, but oh man, my grandma could be mean.
Didn't
She
she like
could,
sleep with Frank Sinatra or something?
no, no,
Oh no, that was your mom slept with Marvin Gaye.
no, she didn't. Like, we're
That's a believable story. You need to
back
run with
away
that.
from that. We are back. That's not true.
Oh no, is she watching? I didn't mean that. I never heard that rumor
True.
before, Marianne. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I'm streaming. What's up?
Want to hear a joke?
I'm streaming.
Hi, Mace.
Want to hear a joke?
Yes.
Say hi to James. Can you hear James?
Hey, James.
Hey, Mace.
All right.
Okay.
Oh, wait a second though. Is this going to be a joke for just you and me, or is this
No.
going to be like a joke that
No,
everyone can hear?
this can be for everyone.
Okay.
Okay, so 10 people are waiting at the gates of heaven. So God grants them all one wish as they go in.
Mhm.
The woman in the front of the line has always been obsessed with her looks. So she says, I wish to be beautiful. God grants her wish, and she goes in. The next person, feeling self-conscious, and he doesn't want to be ugly, so he wishes to be beautiful too. The guy at the back of the line starts laughing, and the couple before him decides, you know what, we're going to be like everyone else. We're going to be beautiful. About an hour later, the guy at the back gets to the front of the line,
Okay.
and his wish is, God asks for his wish, and his wish is, make them all ugly again.
Okay. Good night, kiddo.
Good night.
All right, there he goes.
Well, that'll be in tomorrow's monologue.
He wants to be a stand-up. Yeah, I'm
That's
not
a good
kidding.
start.
I tell you, his life goals are stand-up, pro football player, F1 driver, movie star. Those are those are
Reaching for the top, huh?
He's got backups. There he goes. I'm sorry about that. He knows I'm streaming. I think he wanted to tell a little joke.
Good.
Okay, so what are my thoughts on it? I mean, I guess you could just, say that it represents the breakdown of the traditional family unit. But again, I don't know that in 1920, if you had asked somebody if they could name all 4 of their grandparents, whether the numbers would be any better or any worse.
Right, because they had died of dysentery when you were 4.
Yes, exactly. Right. There were wars and stuff.
Or you took the Oregon Trail and you haven't seen them since.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. See, I'm watching that 1883. None of those people in 1883 who spent like 6 years of their life traveling from Fort Worth to Oregon, none of those people knew their grandparents. They left them back in Tennessee like 5 years before that.
Yeah, they got hit with the Comanche arrow when I was 6. Yeah.
So I thought it was interesting. Because I think most people reading that who think they have a fairly strong hold on their family and a close family would be appalled by that. But I really don't know that that's the norm. I think that it seems about right. I guess. I don't know. I don't know if I should be shocked by that number. Like when I gave you the initial numbers, you were like, but I was, but then I asked myself, and I couldn't come up with all 4. So I would have
number. You have an extreme circumstance, but in the age of the internet, where you can go look up who your ancestor was in 1820 in Limavady, Ireland, or I can. That the fact that you wouldn't know your grandparents means you haven't given a crap to even look it up.
I guess. Hey, like I said, I could actually name people that go back like 15 generations on the St. Aubin side. The Lords of St. I've looked those up. I know those people's names. They're I don't know if they're direct, but they are descendants. But yeah.
How do you have lords, man? I don't have any lords.
Yeah, there's I could pull it up. I've actually saved all of the
losers,
notes
man. I have like
been able to find
tobacco farmers and potato farmers and lumberjacks and horse thieves, and that's about it.
But what countries did they come from? Like, did they have any? I mean, they got here. There was a lot of there's a lot of distance between the current family and the family that 200 years ago had stuff. A lot of bad shit went down. Most of it having to do with the British. But yeah, a lot of land was just taken because they were Catholic and given to Protestants and Anglicans. Maybe you've heard about the troubles in Ireland. Maybe you've heard about.
Yeah, well, I'm conflicted about that because my family's on both sides of that fight.
Yeah, well, there's you either love freedom or you don't.
Sorry about that.
You either bend the knee to the royal bullshit, or you're a believer in freedom and liberty. So, I mean, there you go. Process that when you're making your both sides argument.
No, well, look, I can't help it that a chunk of the Parkers are from England, but the Gallahans, O'Byrnes, and McCluskeys are from Ireland. But
your choice right now, if you were chosen, let's say that you're in Derry or Londonderry, whatever you want to call it. If you were there, I mean, are you bending the knee or are you standing up?
This is like asking me, whose side do I take in a Canadian football game?
No, it's not. No,
I don't know. I don't know the Argonauts versus some of the other teams.
One is about being subservient to a royal family, and the other side is about being your own person with a God-given right to liberty. Which side are you on? I mean, I think that's an easy one based on who you are. I mean, you would obviously say, unless you just want to be a loyalist and just want to go along with it and not really think much about it. But that's the choice. You are either a loyalist to the crown and you believe that there are people who were put on this earth to rule over you, or you're an American who believes in liberty and, pursue that.
Well, when you put it like that, I don't really have a choice. Of course, I don't think people should rule over me. But if you go far back enough in Irish history, the island wasn't some unified one-size-fits-all kingdom. It was it was like
multiple kingdoms.
Right. And so
Very similar to America with the native tribes.
Yeah. So when you go back that far, it's like, well, maybe the guys that you think have their or fighting against the British for them freedom, they had already been subjugated by the other redheads, a little bit further south or whatever, and so they had already bent the knee anyway. So you're
let's limit our
now
conversation
you're
to
standing for this tribe that has bent the knee to another Irish tribe, but now because they're fighting the English, they're not little bitches who they're standing up for their freedom.
what
It's
you don't, but you don't believe in monarchies, right? I mean, you don't believe that in the modern age that is a reasonable way to
that's not
govern a
what we're
society.
talking about. We're not talking about the modern
Well, we
age.
are. We're talking about which side you would be on in the fight in Ireland because you said you've got
What
people on
year
both
is it? What
sides.
year is it?
2022. Yeah.
Oh, in 2022, then yes, I'd be on the Irish side. Absolutely.
But why would that change if it was 1822? Why
Well,
would that change? Or
if it
1922 if we're going to really talk about the
it wouldn't change for 1922, but if it was like 902 and the
There's
right,
no such thing as liberty.
yeah, right,
Well, all
the
right.
the go ahead.
For the sake of this argument, we're going to keep the time span contained to about a 150 year period. Okay, we're gonna try and keep it as
Well,
much. We're not going to go back to the druids and the elves and all of that stuff.
well, it's also for me. It feels like the old argument over whose land is this. We stole this land. Well, yeah, but people that were here stole it from someone else, and the people that were here before that they had stole it from someone else, and the people they had stole it from had stolen it from someone else. So all land is stolen. Damn it!
Is that true? I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
it sounds like a good argument. Who did the Native Americans steal this land from? I mean, was it
Well,
just
okay.
an
So
evolution of a people who had been here from the time that they walked across the frozen Bering Straits?
right. So like the Mexica, like if you go down to Mexico, the Mexica had stole it from the Aztecs, and the Aztecs had stole it from the Olmecs, and the Olmecs had stole it from a civilization that we don't really know who it was. But you could take you could do it something more recent, like when we moved into Texas. As far as the western plains of Texas go, it was dominated by the Comanche, but the Comanches had stole that from the tribes that were here before, because when the Spanish let horses loose, the Comanches actually glommed onto that technology, and they were just a small little band of the Shoshone tribe in Wyoming, and they had moved south and took over land from other people and ran them off it. So the Comanche had stole it from whoever was here before that. But the people who were here before that, who the Comanches had stole it from, they're not the indigenous people either. The Cherokees over in the east actually came from what's kind of like southern Canada and Michigan, that area, and they had gotten their ass kicked. And when their land got stolen, they came down here to southeast of North America, and they stole the land of whoever was here before them. So yeah, the tribal movements and especially the nomadic nature of life before technology. Yeah, all land is stolen. No one is the original inhabitants, and some of it can even kind of feel like the original inhabitants. Like the Italians, did they really steal it from the Romans, or are they a whole different thing, or are they just the evolution of what the Romans were? No, Italy has not been there for 2,000 years or 5,000 years. No civilization has been there for 2,000, 5,000 years. The only real exceptions you get, because when I try and look this up, I've actually tried to answer the question, is there any land that's not stolen? So the Indus River Valley, the Ganges River Valley, and the Yellow River Valley are kind of iffy.
Okay, but Mississippian culture, the Cahokians, you don't include them? They go back to ages of the pyramids. And right in the middle there of southern Illinois, we have pyramids. We have some of the oldest pyramids
The
in the
dirt
world.
mounds. Yeah, the dirt
Cahokian
mounds.
Mounds, yeah. Those people have been there since, and they are the predecessors of the different native tribes who traveled the Mississippi and used the Mississippi to spread out from the north and the southern border of, whatever you would consider North America.
Yeah, but
their capital was Cahokia, which is basically Southern Illinois University now.
It's right across the Mississippi River from St. Louis, isn't it?
Yeah,
Is that what we're talking about? Yeah.
The Cahokia, that's that is the oldest known pre-Columbian North American civilization. Although I think that they do argue that there's like some carved out mountain things in like New Mexico that are just as old. But whatever. I mean, those people have been around.
Well, right, but
thousands of years.
The only people that didn't steal this land were the people that came across the Bering Strait 13,000 years ago. Right? Because there was no humans there.
This is a crazy. We should be getting high. This is a getting high conversation because where did people come from?
I don't
You
I don't
know,
have
like,
any weed, dude.
well, I don't either, and I don't think that there is a method for you to bring it to me. But isn't that like okay? So Africa is the cradle of civilization, right? And look, we don't need to go this far, but right, that's where I guess scientists believe it all started. Yes.
Well, yeah, that's there. There's there was a wide fossil record of humanity that was spread across sub-Saharan Africa until there was a bottleneck that was really concentrated on just East Africa, where there was humans all across that continent, and then for some reason we were getting our ass kicked by what were they called, Denisovans and Neanderthals.
What are we doing here? I appreciate the conversation, but it's like when you're not high, it's not as fun. It's just like, ooh, the Minnesotans. I
No,
don't know.
Denisovans. You know Denisovans, Australopithecus.
Yes, from
We've been through
NYPD
this.
Blue.
No, what the hell?
Oh, that's Dennis Franz. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought.
Dennis Franz.
All right, James. I think that's about it for you tonight. I think, unless you want to hang out, I got one more thing we can do if you want. Or do you need?
Is it going to be kind of quick? I'm going to try and smash because I failed last night.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you the Louis C.K. thing. Do you have a take on the Louis C.K. thing? Because I wanted to show you this woman. There's this story going. Oh,
I don't know the Louis C.K. thing. I know he's selling his own special. If you go to his website, you can get it for $10.
Louis C.K. won the Grammy on Saturday night for Best Comedy Album.
That's the $10 thing that he was selling, right?
Oh, I don't know. Is he selling it? I don't know.
I thought about buying it, but I'm like, man, I don't know. I'll just wait till it comes out on YouTube or something.
It was on Sunday night, and so all of the worst comics in the world, and I'm talking about most of the new young comics that are under 30. You know, James, the woke comedy. That stuff's so fun. That really.
They're like, hey, white people suck. Am I right? Oh. That's so great. Freaking straight people. Christians.
Yeah. Where are the punchlines, people? Anyway, so there's a lot of people that are upset that Louis C.K. First of all, Louis C.K.'s new special is hysterical. I
haven't seen it.
This is a comedy album. We want it for the recording, and I've heard it. I listened to it on a podcast. He's funny. I don't care that he pulled his penis out. Okay. He asked everyone. They all said yes. He didn't rape anybody. Was it inappropriate? I don't know. I think most of us, if we were to delve into our sexual peccadillos, we'd find a lot of inappropriate shit in there. But, there you go, James. You're a freak. People are freaky. That's what they get in. So his thing was he liked to, do what that guy in the Southwest Airlines flight did. He liked to do that. But Louis C.K. at least asked permission first, and they all said, yeah, and then it was years later when people were like, well, yes, I said yes, but I don't think he understood the power imbalance. I was a young comedian, and if I'd have told him no, well, you could just tell him no,
Well, what do you think about Leslie saying stop making excuses for Louis C.K.?
I'm not making excuses for Louis C.K. I think that what he did was a kind of freaky, but, I think a lot of things are freaky. He who has not freaked cast the first stone. What I am making not excuses for, but what upsets me is that he did nothing wrong. He did nothing wrong. He asked for permission. He was granted permission. He didn't force it on anybody. Sarah Silverman, listen to what Sarah Silverman has to say about it. Sarah Silverman's like, I've seen him do it a bunch of times. As a matter of fact, I would say, Louis, do that thing. And Louis would do it. Oh, but then she got shouted down because, she's kind of on that whole woke side of things.
See, look, I think there's a place for what Leslie's saying. If you're like another person, an actor in whatever project that Louis working on, and Louis like, hey, mind if I spank in front of you? You don't really have the clout to be like, you're a pervert, don't you dare do that, because you're risking your job, you're risking future opportunities, you don't want to be ostracized, you don't want to like have a bad reference. This is a guy that can really help you, and if you have to watch him whip his mule or whatever, I mean, that's something you'll trudge through, but that's not what you want to do.
No, you're absolutely right, but what you just described never happened. He was
okay.
He was never the boss of anybody that he did it.
Well, you don't have to be the boss. If I was in a movie with Louis C.K. and he's like, hey, can I spank in front of you? I'd be like, yeah, but I totally do not want to see it. And that's not my preference. I'm not cool with it. I just don't want to screw up my career.
All right, but you say yes in the moment, and then 10 years later, you basically want him crucified.
Oh, well,
publicly.
that's a trash move too, but that
Yeah.
doesn't mean what he did was correct. It
No.
just
What
means these other girls who sat through it are trash as well.
I don't make any judgments on people's personal sexual weirdnesses, okay? Because I just whatever. As long as it's not aggressive, as long as it's not rape, as long as it's not,
As long as it's consensual, I
yeah.
give just about anything a pass. That doesn't mean it's ethical or the right thing to do, but I agree that he didn't deserve to
Wait,
have
wait, 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 wait.
his career destroyed.
Leslie has absolutely no idea of what the charges are against Louis. Of course he was the boss. What do you mean? Of course he was the boss. He was a stand-up comedian, a touring stand-up comedian. All these things happened years and years ago.
Wasn't one of them an actress who wasn't one of the main characters on Lucky Louie? And
Oh,
so
dude, he didn't do it at work. He did, Leslie, you don't do it. Of course,
no,
you
not
did
at
it
work, but
No, I'm reading
she
Leslie.
was
It wasn't doing it at work. This all happened after shows, after parties.
yeah. It wasn't at work, Leslie.
No, it was never at work. See, these people, they want the bloodlust among some people to just destroy. This guy has lost almost $40 million. I think he's paid his due. I think that if he rebounds now 5 years later and makes another great comedy album, because despite whatever you think of him sexually, he's a fucking funny guy, he deserved his win. And now people are like, no, he needs to be completely canceled forever. It's like, well, guess what? You know what? People like him because
No, my big pushback on this is what he did, ethically speaking, I would not be happy with if that had happened to my daughter.
Nothing backstage. See, Leslie does not know the story. He did it backstage. No, he did not. No, he did not ever.
I don't know that. I don't know that level of
It always
specificity.
happened at parties and in hotel rooms. It never happened backstage.
Okay, but here's my big problem with it. He does not deserve to be in the same conversation as Harvey Weinstein.
Of course not.
And that's what he was put in. He was in that whipped up mob frenzy of the Me Too movement when it was first getting going, and they were taking scalps. And so, hey, what's another scalp we can take? Louis C.K. did something wrong. Let's take him too. No, he didn't deserve to be whipped up in that. Like Al Franken didn't deserve to be whipped up in that.
No, of course not. No, there's a
No.
lot of people that, I have issues with the Aziz Ansari situation.
Oh, definitely the Aziz Ansari situation is okay. He's just a jackass, but that's not the same as being a rapist or it just being anywhere in the same sentence as a Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah. He did it on off time. He thought it was okay to spank it in front of people that he asked. That he said, "Hey, do you mind if I do this?" I mean, I'm sorry. I don't see a problem with that. You're in a hotel room, everybody's drunk, everybody's partying. That's kind of a bold move. I don't think I could ever pull off that move.
Well, I also like to do the role reversal thing to where what if there was an actress that wanted like when we were working together, what if Sybil's like, "Hey James," like after the Christmas party and we like go to someone's house, she's like, "Hey, you want to watch me masturbate?" And
you'd have been sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
God, that'd be amazing.
Mind if I over here do the same thing? Just as friends? What's the problem here?
That would have been the greatest party I'd ever been to. I'd be like, best Christmas party ever. So if it doesn't pass the gender flip test, I'm really skeptical of it. But it's in the same way.
Yes, someone has. Hold on, I'm answering Leslie. Has someone ever asked you to do something you didn't want to do? Yeah, and I said no, I don't want to do it. And you know what? Plenty of women said, "Oh, Louis, you're gross. Stop it," and he stopped. There's a whole bunch of women comedians who rallied to his defense and went, "Yeah, I told him not. I said you're gross. Stop it. That's disgusting," and he stopped.
You know what? I remember that, and that actually
prevalently, Sarah Silverman is the one who says that. Oh, he used to do that all the time. That was his thing. We were comedians. People whipped it out all the time. I can't tell you how many times I've seen Eric Mark's dick because Eric Mark used to just whip it out all the time. Oh, I shouldn't have said that because I'm confused. It's not Eric Mark.
It was another Eric. Definitely
Paco.
not the.
It was Paco. It was Paco.
If we can slam him all we want now.
He's dead. It doesn't matter.
Just pin all the BS on him now.
I get those guys. It was Paco.
Well, look, and sometimes I don't know if they really mean it or if they're just doing it for effect because like there was that one time when Jim Norton came to town and we were at the Improv.
Al says, Amy Poehler was all right with it too. Amy Poehler said, "Yeah, that was Louis." He would just say, "Hey, anybody mind if I masturbate?" And then a bunch of room full of comedians would be like, "Hey, go ahead, Louis."
Oh man, like we were hanging out in what was that, Pete's Dueling Piano Bar across the hallway
Mhm.
from Madison Improv,
Good
and like
times.
some people came in like giggling, like laughing their ass off. And I'm like, what's so funny? And they said Jim Norton offered to pay a girl like $200 if she would let him watch her take a dump or something. And I didn't know if he did that because he had the sexual proclivity, like that gets him off, or if he just wanted to see if she would do it, to see how
Wait, who?
far. Jim
Tell me the
Norton.
story again, because I was reading Leslie, like, because Leslie said, "If you're a woman, you look like a bitch if you can't hang." What? So suddenly that's on him? That's a you thing. That's if you think you look like a bitch because you can't hang. That's a you issue. You need to be more confident. But go ahead, tell me about Jim Norton. Yeah, Jim Norton is a sexual deviant. But please tell me the
Oh
story.
my God, yeah. Have you ever? Well, I remember the act he did at the Improv where he talked about where he and his friends when they were 8 years old would take turns blowing each other.
All true. Yeah, all that stuff is true.
And so that's like a whole different world for me. So I didn't know. Oh yeah. I got to tell the story. So we're in like Pete's Dueling Piano Bar after the Jim Norton show, or one of the 10 Jim Norton shows I saw. I don't even remember which one it is. They came in laughing. I think it was like was Craig Gass with him? Remember that dude?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. So I think it was like him and one of the other openers that I don't even remember his name. They came in. They were
Actually,
laughing.
If it was Norton, Opie was with him because every time Norton,
Yeah, but it wasn't Greg that came in giggling. Or Opie. Sorry. So they came in laughing, and what's so funny? And Jim Norton had paid a girl like $200 to, or I don't even know if this is true. They could have just made this up to just be slagging him.
so far it
Uh,
sounds true.
yeah, so $200 if the girl would let Jim Norton uh watch her take a dump, and I know this is so stupid, isn't it? This is our life. This is what we did for a living for like 10 years. You understand that, right?
Not me, but I was a witness to some of it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, I definitely didn't do that either. Christ almighty. So I didn't know. Look, I didn't know if Jim Norton was like into that and maybe he gets off on it. I didn't know if he just did it to see how much the girl would be willing to humiliate herself or do something gross for $200. I didn't know if it was a sex thing or a humiliation thing or it was a funny thing or he just did it to have the story. And I didn't really care.
Didn't want to know more.
No, but when you have that level of, is depravity the right word? Decadence
Yes.
isn't the right word.
Yes.
Perversion's the right word. The
Mhm.
Louis C.K. story doesn't really sound that bad, and these are people who run in the same circle,
Yes.
and so. Like Jim Florentine would tell stories about how they would just go out to the street and mess with people in different ways. And like these people all hung out, and it seemed to be a race to see who could get away with doing the weirdest, wildest stuff. Some of it was sexual, some of it was humiliating, some of it was sort of the jackass type thing where you hurt yourself or you embarrass yourself.
Uh-huh.
And so I don't even know
But it almost always had something to do with degradation. Almost
yes.
always, especially
Yeah.
East Coast New York comics. It was always,
Yes.
yeah. The West
So
Coast guys weren't quite like that, but
So
the
when I hear the dude, you're nailing it. So when I hear the Louis C.K. story, it's wrapped up in that whole culture and that whole scene, and the stories I've heard from these people from their own mouths are way worse than what Louis C.K. did.
that's the Comedy Cellar crew. The Comedy Cellar, which is the home base to all of these guys, the New York City club where they sit there. Kelly and I went to New York and we sat at a table in the Comedy Cellar upstairs above the showroom where all of the comedians sat. We spent a Saturday night there. It was Colin Quinn and Patricia O'Neill and Opie was with us, and Jim Norton and Jim Florentine and Nick DiPaolo. It was all of these guys, and I swear to God, it was the most interesting night that you know me, I'll talk. I can run. I said nothing for about 2 hours. I just sat there and listened to these. Most of them are comedy standard, gold standard type, East Coast
Savants
comedians. Yes.
is what they are.
And what all they did, and these guys were best friends, and all they did were just one after another, just the most offensive, obscene, things about one another. I mean,
and it's a
we're
one up
talking.
contest. By the time you get to
Yes.
3 in the morning, like I one up you, I'm crazier, I'm crazier, I'm more sick, I'm more
Uh-huh.
degrading. And by the time you get to
Everybody
3 in the morning, you're at
switches.
all new heights where Jim Norton has paid $200 to watch a girl take a dump.
Yes,
Right?
that is the lifestyle. That is the lifestyle of the
Yeah.
comedian. I
And
mean, I saw things. I saw like a conversation, and it's an argument. You know, you and I, how we can start arguing, we start yelling, and then a second later we just go back to something else.
we've
I
never
mean,
really argued. We just pretended
yeah,
to
we
argue.
raise our voices and we, yeah.
Yeah.
But the Pitbull thing from tonight's a good example. We got heated with each other. This is not.
Yeah, like I care.
I mean, the racist talk between like a Patrice O'Neal and a Nick DiPaolo, two guys who love each other, just the awful things that they were saying about it. Nick DiPaolo being an Italian, and Patrice O'Neal, the late great Patrice O'Neal, being a black guy, and Nick DiPaolo just like dropping N bombs in his face. Well, you know what it is with UNs. UNs are, and Patrice just sitting there taking it and then just winging it right back at him. My jaw was on the floor. But this is how those kinds of people exercise. It was their exercise. I remember walking back with Opie and he goes, "What'd you think of that?" And I go, I've never seen anything like that. He goes, every night. Every night. That's what they do. I was like, oh my God. And that's how they hone their craft. And that's
Dude,
where
they all told us amazing stories about the Comedy Cellar. So I was up in New York a few years ago for the Talkers Conference, and I had to go. And so
You
I
know the
sat through.
restaurant, the Middle Eastern restaurant? That's right there upstairs. That's where we were. We were sitting.
It's called the Olive Bar when I
Yeah.
was there.
Middle Eastern, Mediterranean, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Olive Bar. I guess that is Mediterranean. But yeah. No, I know it because I'd heard the stories and I wanted to hang out there too. So before it was time for me to go to the show, I made sure to go there an hour early just so I can hang out in that bar that they talked about.
Did
But
you see
yeah,
anybody? I mean, were there people like known comedians? That's what I couldn't get over. We walked in.
I didn't.
We walked in, and Joy Behar, second Joy Behar reference of the night. Joy Behar is like walking out, and she's like gag, 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 like yelling at people as she's walking out. I'm like, "There's Joy Behar," and then we walk in and we sit down with Colin Quinn and Patrice O'Neal, and yeah, I mean that is ground zero for New York City comedy. That was the night we did the coolest thing. That was the whole reason we were there was because we went out with Jim Norton, and Jim Norton was working. And you know how like here in Dallas, we just have the Improv and they have three guys. They have an opener, a middler, and a headliner, and they do two shows and then it's over. In New York City, that's not how they do it.
No, they have 8 guys. They just go bam, 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 bam. Is when I went.
8 guys and 10 different comedy clubs. It was like, so we go into the Comedy Cellar and Jim goes, yeah, I'm going to do a set here at the Comedy Cellar. And Jim goes up and he does his set. 5 minutes, boom. Okay, let's go to Caroline's. We get in his car. We drive all the way up to Caroline's. We walk in the back door. He's like, I'm going to do a quick set at Caroline's. At Caroline's, Hannibal was there. You know Hannibal Buress?
Yeah, the guy that took down Bill Cosby.
Yeah, now we're hanging out with Hannibal Buress in the wings here. Jim Norton gets up and he does that. And then there's like another one, the East End Club. He's like, come on, let's go to the East End. He does it every Saturday night. That's what the New York comics do. They go from stage to stage to stage to stage.
Cool.
It was so cool. But I mean, getting back to the Louis C.K. thing, because that's his stomping ground. That's how Louis C.K. came up. Those are his people.
Mm-hmm.
It is not a world for mom and pop from Nebraska. It is not anything that I think they would be able to stomach. It was crazy. It was, but Anyway, I'm glad Louis C.K. won, and people are upset about it, but bunch of
All right, so where can I catch this set for free?
I don't know. I'll send it to you. I'll show you where I saw it from.
Oh, and I've heard from the people in the scene that the new club that everyone likes is Fat Black Pussycat. It's been around a while, but it's now part of that circuit, Caroline's
in New York?
And Fat Black Pussycat.
Yeah, we were walking into Caroline's, and Opie didn't want to go in because do you remember the Sex for Sam scandal that got Opie and Anthony kicked off the air in New York City because people had sex in St. Patrick's Church?
Oh, yeah, right.
Sex for Sam. So there was a comedian who was in charge of the couple who got caught having sex in the church, and the comedian. Yeah, because Sex for Sam was they'd send out these people, these couples all around New York City, and they had to have sex at certain locations for points. And to prove that they had sex, each couple had a Opie and Anthony whack packer, like a comedian or whatever, who would be there with a phone going, "Yep, yep, they're doing it right here in Central Park, right in the middle of Central Park." And so that would be what was on the air. The sex wouldn't be on the air, but the spotter would. So Paul, I think was his name, who was the one at St. Pat's. They hadn't spoken. He basically told the cops everything, and so there was like this
Damn.
thing.
Okay.
And so we were walking into Caroline's, and there was like this big drama moment where it was the first time that Opie had like run cross paths with this guy since they got kicked off the air. And he was like, "I don't know, man, I don't think I can go in there." And then they went in, and it was fine. And they talked, and they were just like, "Hey, dude, how you doing?" And so, but I remember that was the big drama of the night. All right, that's it. That and a guy took a pee on the subway. We watched him. That's part of the New York experience. We took the subway from one club to another. We went all the way up and down, and there was a guy just go and pee right there out in the open. He just
Subway
had to pee.
sucks.
It was no, it doesn't. I actually love the subway. It is
You
super
do?
convenient. Oh,
I like it. I like it because you don't have to drive drunk.
I like it because you don't have to park anywhere. You don't need a
True.
car. You can go. I mean, if you can put up with the circus, it is absolutely an underground circus going on down there. If you can survive that and you're willing to put up with it, the convenience of it. Have you ever been, you've never been to London. The Tube in London, which is their subway system, is the most, if you're a tourist, it is the most amazing. You could walk 50 miles in a day trying to go from Buckingham Palace to Big Ben, or you can just use the Tube and you can just be dropped off at all of these tourist places. And no, I love it. It's beautiful. I love the subways. In Chicago, I love the transit system. So convenient, especially when there's nowhere to park. Half your night is ruined going around the block looking for a parking spot. All right, bye, James. There he goes. I've never been to the DC. I've never been to the DC Improv. I was in DC a couple of years ago, and we went to. I wanted to go to a comedy club, but we ended up instead going to some slam poetry thing, which was also fun. We had fun at that thing. Can I just say, I've only been twice. No, 3 times, because I went and visited my aunt there once for Thanksgiving. Most underrated city in America is Washington, D.C. I love Washington, D.C. Well, I mean, first of all, during the day, there is so much cool stuff to do. There is, Smithsonian, you got all of the monuments and all that. I mean, there is just so much incredibly cool stuff to do during the day in Washington, D.C. But at night in Washington, D.C., it's a really cool city and it's got really cool things because the most important people from around the globe travel to Washington, D.C. And they're used to having cool things. They're used to having nice things. The best hotels, the best restaurants, the coolest bars, the most interesting clubs. Washington, D.C. is a very slept-on American city. It's great. I love it. I still like, I don't count Dallas and Chicago because those are my homes. And so, your heart is always where your home is. But I don't know, if somebody said, you want to go to New York or you want to go to Washington? Yeah, I'd say New York. I'd still say New York. I like New York the best. But Washington, D.C. is right there. Los Angeles, San Francisco, Washington, D.C. Oh, Boston's fun too. Boston is a really good city. Huh. All right. Maybe at some point, why not right now? Greatest American City Draft. Nah, we'll save that for another time. Al Gamboa says, I met Ted Cruz standing out in front of the Capitol Bar a couple of years back. Jeff Ballard said, such a fun show tonight. Never needed a cigarette after a... Oh, Jeff, you silly. Leslie and I fought, even though I love her. She knows I love her. We'll be okay. Kenny? No, thank you, Kenny. Let's see here. Who else do we got? Yeah, we got Jeff. Yeah. All right. Oh. You know what I'm gonna go do? You know what I'm gonna do? Here's what I'm gonna do for the rest of the night. Okay. So, no, I can't talk about it. I was gonna say, can I talk about Kenny, I have heard that about Atlanta. I've never been to Atlanta. I got to go to Atlanta, huh? Got to go to Atlanta. Been to Miami. I think Miami is overpriced and overrated and humid. I did not like Miami. It was so humid, so uncomfortable, and everybody's so attractive in Miami. It's like, ugh, no, thank you. I mean, I guess it's beautiful, but so uncomfortable. Ugh. And like Ocean Drive, South Beach area of Miami, it's just I don't look at me. I don't belong there. There was never a place where I was having so much, and I was having a lot of fun. We were with people and we were having a good time. But I just was like, yeah, I wouldn't come back here. I wouldn't want to live here. Wasn't there supposed to be a guest? Yeah, there was supposed to be a guest today. Sorry, Charlie. I was supposed to say sorry, Charlie, to sorry, Charlie, to James today, but I forgot. Tom says, come on, talk about whatever you were going to. Okay, extempore. We'll talk about the American cities, best American cities to have a good time in. Okay, let's see here. American City Draft. Why not? We'll do it. And again, I'm not counting Chicago and Dallas because I have had per capita more incredibly good times in both Chicago and Dallas that it wouldn't be fair. It'd be like, well, obviously Chicago, but those are my homes, so I'm biased, so I can't count Chicago and Dallas. All right, so number one. What would be the number one city? Number one city for having a good time. That's easy. It's New York City. It's New York City, man. You guys, yeah, hate New York City all you want. No one's asking you to live there. But if you're there on a Friday or a Saturday night, especially in the spring or the fall, summer it gets sometimes a little hot. In the winter, nobody wants to deal with that. But spring or the fall in New York City, oh my God. I've been in New York City a number of times. My favorite time in New York City was with my first wife, Sloan, when we got engaged. We were there for the World Series on the night the Yankees won the World Series. And it was the first time the Yankees had won the World Series in, I don't know, a long time for the Yankees. So probably in like 5 years. But the town was going crazy. That was fun. New York City is so much fun. San Francisco. Don't sleep on San Francisco. You can have a great time in San Francisco too. That's a really fun city. Washington, D.C., that would be number 3. I would say Washington, D.C. Byron, I don't know that Vegas, obviously. I mean, who hasn't had fun in Vegas, right? Vegas isn't, but Vegas doesn't get to be rated because that's all Vegas is. Vegas just is a fun city. It's like doing the list of the best carnivals that you've ever been to, and then you rank Six Flags number 1. It's not really a carnival, you know what I mean? Six Flags is kind of that whole thing. But yeah, obviously Vegas. Al, oh my God, I can't believe that I forgot one of my favorite American cities. All right, it's New York City, and then I got to move. I'm bumping D.C. I said Washington, D.C. was fun. It is. But I'm bumping Washington, D.C. from the second funnest city on a weekend to party in, and I'm replacing it with Austin. How did I forget Austin? Because it's too close. That's what it is. Austin is too close. Oh, my God. Austin might be my favorite place in the world. I just love Austin, Texas. Everybody who's had a good time in Austin, Texas knows exactly what I'm telling you about. It is first of all, it's the most fascinating city in Texas. It just truly is. You want to talk about diversity and weirdness and, just like shit that doesn't exactly jive. The shit that doesn't track with the whole rest of Texas, Austin. Austin is, all bets are off in Austin. I love Austin. Kenny, I hate New Orleans. I know. People get so mad at me when I say that. That's like my geographic hot take that'll get me canceled. I don't like New Orleans. I don't like it's dirty, it's smelly, and I don't like that kind of food. Jasmine. I don't like the whole. I don't New Orleans. New Orleans doesn't make my list. People, you don't like Miami or New Orleans? No, I really don't. I don't. Let's see what else. I'll tell you, I've had some. Now we're getting into the part of the list where I'm just talking about places that I've been to, because it's very rare that you just go anywhere. Like you could go to Detroit for a weekend with your buddies and be like, "Detroit's awesome, man." Milwaukee. I have had really good times in Milwaukee. Milwaukee is a drunk city, boy. Well, beer, brewers, everything up there is cheese, sausage, and beer. Milwaukee is a fun city too. What else is a good city? Jeff says the food is the only reason that I would go back to New Orleans. Yeah, Tom, I know you love New Orleans. That's why I was kind of like, I probably shouldn't say that. What else is a good city? What else is a good city to have fun in? Good American city. Are there any that? No, I can tell you one of the worst cities to be in on a Saturday night. Indianapolis. Oh God, that place is awful. There ain't nothing to do in Indianapolis. Oh God, you may as well be in Texarkana. Yeah, I'm taking shots at Texarkana. Indianapolis is bad. Ugh. Milwaukee's not. Milwaukee's fun. A lot of cool bars, a lot of cool people. Kenny Jenkins is damn right. Madison, Wisconsin, Madtown is awesome too. Do you know what? Madison, Wisconsin, Kenny. For some of my friends who are up in the Midwest who know Madison but don't know Austin, Madison, Wisconsin is Austin with 4 seasons. That's basically what it is. The best time you've ever had in the spring or summer in Madison is what Austin is year round. That's just the whole thing. Remember Eric's wedding? Indianapolis sucks. Eric's wedding didn't suck. Yeah, that wasn't India. Okay, well, I mean, obviously, I've been to Indianapolis a bunch of times. Tom, I'm not going to sign off on that because, I remember having a good time. I don't know. I had a great time. Yeah, San Diego. San Diego is nice. I've been to San Diego. I was only in San Diego for one night though, so I don't know that I was able to really. LA is good, man. LA is good. I haven't mentioned LA yet. LA is really good. LA, when we used to go there for the Grammys and they used to treat us really well and we had like limousines everywhere and we had, there were special dinners set up for us and it was just me and Kelly hanging out with all these other DJs from around the country. That was always fun. That was a lot of fun. I peed next to Zach Braff. Told him I loved the film Garden State. I was like, I just saw Garden State. Good movie. He's like, okay, great, man. I'm like, nice dick. No, I didn't say that, but I probably could have. Let's see. What else did I do in LA that was fun? That was good. Oh, hung out with Lemmy at the Rainbow. That was cool. He was a guest on the show, and he said, "You go by the Rainbow." I'm like, we'll never. He never remember us. And then we ended up going to the Rainbow, and there was Lemmy sitting at the bar, and I'm like, "Hey, Lemmy, remember me? You were on the show today." He's like, "Hey, shut up!" And I drank with Lemmy. That was fun. What else? Oh, Sean Rouse. Another time I was in LA, I watched Sean Rouse, the late great Sean Rouse. God, I love Sean. God, I loved him. So we were out in LA and Sean Rouse, he took me out and we went out with like a bunch of his LA comedian guys. Some of them are like well known now, like in the years since I've like seen them on TV shows and stuff. And I'm like, I partied with that guy. But we were at a bar in LA and Sean Rouse almost beat up Tom Green. Remember Tom Green? Remember Tom Green? Remember that guy, Tom Green? Yeah. I think it was me, Mike Turley. Remember Mike Turley from 105.3? It was me and Mike Turley and Sean Rouse and Bob Biggerstaff, who's a comedy writer, and a couple other people whose names I don't remember. But Tom Green stole a stool from the group of people where we were sitting. He just walked up and he grabbed the stool because somebody had gone to the bathroom. And it wasn't even Sean Rouse's stool, but Sean Rouse was really drunk and he was really aggressive when he was drunk, which is funny because if you knew Sean Rouse, he suffered from like basically like brittle bone disease. He had like severe rheumatoid arthritis, and it's part of the reason why he didn't live to be 40. But he was all jacked up. He would just get really wasted, and he's like, "Fuck you, Tom Green." He's like, "Hey man, you can just have the stool back." "No, fuck you. I want you to bring the stool back to me." It's like Sean Rouse yelling at Tom Green. It's like, man, cut it out. I kind of like Tom Green. "Hey Tom, you guys can have the stool." "Hey, I'm sorry, man. I didn't think that you guys were using the stool." "Oh, that's not for you to decide, motherfucking Tom Green." I'm like, Sean, this is why you're never going to get any work in this town. This is exactly why. So Los Angeles is fun. Yeah, that's it. All right, that's it. Jeff Ballard, Iowa. Jeff, I've driven through Iowa. Leslie Collins is right. Boston is a fun city. I've had a lot of Fennel Hall in Boston. Oh my God. What was the guy's name? Lindy Byers. Google search Lyndon Byers of the Boston Bruins. Lyndon Byers. We were at a bar in Boston with a guy by the name of Tom Waddle, who was a Chicago Bear. And Tom Waddle played for Boston College. And so we were running around to all of these bars in Fennel Hall, and Tom was like, "Yeah, I'm taking my old stomping grounds." And so we're going to all of these bars with Waddle. And one of his buddies was this guy, Lyndon Byers, who played for the Boston Bruins. And he threw me down a flight of steps. And I don't know how we got to that point. It was a friendly toss down the flight. It was like, "Yeah, I dare you to throw Pugs down the flight of steps." And all of a sudden, there's this big, gigantic, drunken former enforcer from the NFL. And he just threw me down like a flight of steps. And I rolled out of it, and I got up, and I'm like, "What the fuck?" And he's like, very good fellas-y. And I was like, and we just moved on to the next bar. God, young men when they are drunk, right? How stupid are we? I mean, how absolutely ridiculous. Kenny, I don't think have I been to the Quad? Hey, Tom Beller, we ever been to the Quad Cities? I feel like that's a place where maybe I've been to with Tom Beller. I don't know. I've been to Des Moines. I had a good time in Des Moines. Never been to Tijuana. Everybody says you got to go to Tijuana. You have a good time in Tijuana. Well, I've never been to Tijuana. Where I've never been to Atlanta. Everybody says you got to go to Atlanta. Hot Atlanta. Never partied in Nashville. I hear that Nashville can be a really good town to go have a good time. I think my days of that are over, though. I think that I'm now at the stage of my life where I've built up sufficient memories, and I've shut it down. I don't. Although I think I've got a couple. I think I've got a handful of good nights left in me, but I got to use them sparingly. Like a couple of them I'm saving up for, my son, when my son is old enough to start having his good nights. When my son is like 22, 23, I got to save a couple. I got to have a little something in the tank for, once we get there. But, over the next couple of years, Tom says, "Sorry, I wasn't there for you when you got thrown down the stairs." No, but Tom, the time before that a hockey player beat me up. Tom, who beat me up? Who was that beat me? Was it Stan Mikita or, it was Keith Magnuson, right? Yeah, Keith Magnuson beat me up. He threw me into a table at a golf outing. He just picked me up and like body slammed me through a table. And Tom was with me. Tom was like, this is when Tom was a college football player. He's offensive lineman, a big giant dude. And Tom just reaches down and grabs Keith Magnuson, NHL legend Keith Magnuson. Yeah, Maggie. And just picks him up. And he's like, "Oh, you're going to leave him alone." And I'm like, "Oh, that was cool. Good thing I had Tom with me tonight." But again, it wasn't even aggressive. It was just like goofing around. That's how these idiots goof around. These idiots, hockey players, man, they're nuts. They're nuts. That's how they have fun. They have fun by breaking things and starting fights and then going off drinking with the people they started the fight with. All right. That's it. That's enough. Story time's over. Things are going good. Branson, so much mini golf. And Yakov's, what a country. what a county. Does he say that in Branson when he's in Branson County, Missouri? I've never been to Branson. I've driven through Branson. I'm trying to think is there like a weird what is the weirdest place that I had a really good time in that I didn't expect to? Mm. It's got to be somewhere around here. Like Austin, obviously. Austin is one of the great cities of the world. People come from all around the world to, have a Saturday night in Austin, Texas. Austin is unbelievable. But where look, I'm trying to think. I'm going through like all of the places that I've been. Bossier City. I had a good night in Bossier City once. That was fun. Uh, no. Yeah, that was kind of so. What is the town? Is it Norman, Oklahoma, where University of Oklahoma is? I had a really I don't remember much of it, but I remember a friend of mine owned a bar, and they opened up a bar up in Norman, Oklahoma, and we went up there for a football game. I think it was like Texas A&M versus Oklahoma or something. Whew, I have no memories of that, but I know it was good. I know we had a really good time in Norman, Oklahoma. I know that was fun. I could talk about I could talk about DeKalb, Illinois. I've had a lot of really good times in DeKalb, Illinois. Tom could tell you about that. Tom and I have had fun in DeKalb, Illinois. Uh, oh, Byron, what bar? Was it Logan's? Maybe that's it. I think maybe it was Logan's, or was it or that I think that was the bar they owned here. I don't know if it was called. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's jeez. It's all a blur, my man. It's all a blur. Where else? Where else? Oklahoma. That was easily though the best night I've had in Oklahoma. I actually it might be only like one. What's the gambling casino right up across the border? I mean, that's when I say I've only probably spent 3 nights in Oklahoma, and 2 of them were at that gambling casino. That was fun, and then the other one was a Saturday night for the Texas A&M OU football game. Kenny. Let's see. I've been to Tulsa. Yeah, there was nothing really going on in Tulsa. Never been to Oklahoma City. Never been to El Paso. The big the elephant in the room that I'm not mentioning is Houston because I've been to Houston. I don't love Houston. I don't love Houston. I like San Antonio more than I like Houston, which is not a compliment because I don't love San Antonio either. I love Austin. I love Tyler, James stomping grounds. I had a great time in Tyler once. And of course, Dallas. I love Dallas. Fort Worth. Why? Look at me. I'm not even talking about Fort Worth. Give Fort Worth its due. I have had more good times in Fort Worth. I would say that the quality of nights that I've had in Fort Worth are 1/4 of the amount of good nights that I've had in Dallas, but only because I don't spend as much time in Fort Worth, but they're every bit as good. I love Fort Worth. I ever tell you about that? How like that's if I like had all this if I could live anywhere in the Metroplex, it would be over by where the Colonial is played in Fort Worth. If I had the money, like screw this Highland Park. These people are stupid. I would live over there by the Colonial golf course in Fort. I love it over there. God, it's beautiful. The hills and so nice. It's like reminds me of certain areas of Oak Cliff that just not scary. Good poker down there, though. Houston sucks. Houston is an armpit. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just remember. I remember we were out. It was Saturday night. We were in Houston, and we were. It just wasn't. It wasn't great. It wasn't great. All right, so there you go. That's it. It's New York is number one. Then we come in with Austin. Then we come in with Los Angeles. Like you got to put it there. You can have. I mean, the biggest cities are the ones where you can get into the most trouble and have the most fun. But it also doesn't really depend on who the people are that you're hanging out with. I mean, so I've had the best running crews in those cities. Then we'll come up with like Washington D.C. probably in like 4th place, San Francisco in 5th place, and that's it. There you go. Those are my favorite American cities that I've had good times in. Indianapolis is still the worst, though. Good Lord, Indianapolis is boring. Jeffrey says, when it comes to Dallas and Fort Worth, is it where you live? I've heard it called Fort Worth, Dallas, and Dallas, Fort Worth. No, it's definitely DFW. It's definitely Dallas, Fort Worth. I think, yeah. Dallas is the bigger city. And then there's like, I was explaining this to someone recently because they think that like, they're like, oh, aren't you near Fort Worth? And I'm like, well, not near Fort Worth. I mean, it's all one area, it's just one side of this giant area is Dallas, and then the other side of the giant area is Fort Worth. And for some reason, even people who understand that, they think that it's nothing but like cow pastures in between. I'm like, dude, there's like 8 million people in between. The Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex is massive. It's like, it's nothing but suburb. It's all densely populated with one big city, Dallas, over on one side, and then suburb. And then you have Arlington, which I'm sure you all know about Arlington because that's AT&T Stadium. That's like 250,000 people live in the city of Arlington alone. And then it's just suburb, Fort Worth. So it's all just like one big giant area. But it's definitely, Dallas definitely comes first. All right, guys, I love y'all. We'll see you tomorrow at noon. Appreciate you hanging out with me tonight. Look at us. We went a little bit longer. Have a good one. Tomorrow, high noon. Bye.